Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller, and welcome to my TBR for January 2023. I am really excited for this lineup of books. I have a new reading strategy I'm trying out this month, and for those of you who caught my top 10 bookish problems post, I'm sure you're laughing at me at the moment. This one's gonna stick. Maybe. I am ever trying to increase my focus on the best books first. And to do that, I need a little discipline to stop focusing on the shiny titles that come across my radar and to really limit my focus to just the top series that I have going at the moment. And for me, one of them is currently The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. I thought the first book was okay. It was a decent introduction to this world and these characters, but I loved the Untethered Sky novella that comes out in a couple months. And so I wanted to make a concerted effort to read more from her. And I started this one already last month. I'm about 20% of the way through, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's quite good. This series has essence of what I was expecting, but it really is nothing like I was envisioning before jumping in. It's a little bit less gritty than I thought it would be, which I don't mind. I don't actually like reading about grit. I just really love the stories that happen to have a lot of grit in it, like Abercrombie. But it's really enjoyable. I love the character dynamics. I'm really interested in the politicking aspect of things. I always love politics in books. And the first one gave me a little bit of that, but I'm hoping this one will amp it up even further. And the magic. I want more of the jade magic. And so far, so good on both accounts. We'll see how things go. Like I said, I'm not very far in. I also want to make my reading life all about John Gwynne. After gushing at length on my top 10 of 2022 video, I realized that I love this author. He has the potential to be up there with some of my all-time favorites, but I just don't make time to concentrate on his works. Hence the fact that this stupid book has been on my list for 3 or 4 months in a row. But after I read Jade War, I am definitely diving into this one. It's my #1 focus for January, and I can't wait to read more John Gwynne. So it occurred to me that I never actually told you specifics for my reading strategy. So what I want to do is take 4 different series that I think are high priority and just kind of rotate through them until I finish one. When I finish one, I can either start a new one or I can take another one that I've started already and input it in its slot. But I only have 4 slots, and so I've got to be very selective on what I'm choosing to focus on. And then I left myself a 5th spot that's just open for all of these various projects that I have going. So I do Project Sci-Fi, Project Urban Fantasy, Project YA, my book club books, and my Read Burn Hoard. I needed a slot to encompass all of those. And so that 5th spot is designated to one of those at any given point. So I have to be selective about what I'm picking from those projects. For example, right now, I'm pretty good on urban fantasy and YA. I am looking at starting a sci-fi to get going on filming for that. And then once I finish that, I'll be picking up the book club book. And once I finish that, one for Read Burn Hoard. And then I'll be back to Project YA. But see, only one book going at a time for all of that, whereas the majority of my focus are on these series that I'm loving. I want to look back at the end of the year and be really happy with all of my reading choices. I'm not saying I'll necessarily love all of the books I pick up, but I want to give myself the best shot possible. And John Gwynne is definitely at the top of my list. When I sat down to prioritize everything, easily #1. So I should be reading more John Gwynne. It's indicative of how much I need this challenge that I have been dragging it along for so many months, but it's happening. If it doesn't, I'm just going to quit booktubing. Next up, I finished The Coward by Stephen Arion last month for Patreon Book Club and would like to immediately dive into The Warrior. I was really happy to discover that this is just a duology, so yeah, once I finish that, I'm done with that series, can wrap it up and start something else. I really liked the first book. It had this X factor of storytelling that I found really fun to read. It was one of those books where I really wasn't tracking how fast I was getting through it. I was just enjoying the process. And before I knew it, I was near the end. Now, the only thing I will say is that the components were all there. It was an amazing story. I really loved how it was told. And there was a couple of unconventional things, a non-human main character that I especially loved. But it really didn't amount to anything in the first book. It had all of this potential, but then it just kind of went meh. And that's okay because it was an enjoyable meh. So a solid 3-star for the whole book. But I'm curious to see if he can build a momentum over the course of the entire series of 2 books and give me a more satisfying ending with The Warrior, because I'm definitely on board with the writing style. And I'm already looking into seeing what else he has available because I want to read more from him. I really liked his writing style. Because I have some denser fantasies going, every now and then I do need a refresher. And so I still haven't read Blackfire Keep by Anthony Ryan, so I'm just gonna put this in as like a palate cleanser here and there. I do that with nonfiction too, but I think I need one. Plus, this will bring me up to date with this series. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm also doing an incomplete series challenge where I pick one series to close out per month and really focus on that. And that takes the place of that 5th slot as well. So I need to figure out a way to put this in amidst all of those other rotations. It seems confusing, but it all makes sense in my head and it's very structured. But it just seems like that 5th category could get a little out of hand if I let it get loosey-goosey. But the point is I'm only picking up planned reads for those. I'm not picking up anything kind of random. It all has a purpose and is for a specific challenge, which is a distinction from just whatever the heck I feel like reading next from my library. But yes, the first 3 books in this series were awesome. Can't wait to dive into this latest installment. I am pretty sure by this point y'all have seen my update from my really weird A to Z challenge that I'm running. But the first book on the shelf is The Smoke Thief by Shanna Abe. I had a customer or two recommend this one to me back in the day. They said it was brilliant, like so good, but it was shelved in the romance section. So I'm like, how good could it be? That shows my personal bias. I am operating on a wealth of having read quite a few of them, and I know they just don't work for me generally. But I have read this author's young adult series set in the same world with the same type of magical creatures, and it is one of the most lovely things I have ever read. In fact, having dived into this one just briefly, that beautiful fairy tale quality of her writing style and rich world building is already taking shape, and I'm loving it. So if I'm gonna do a weird project, I can think of worse places to start than this book. So are you ready for some other exceptions to my strategy? I'm only including audiobooks in the rotation of stuff I'd like to really focus on, and I'm saving my physical reading time for a bunch of advanced copies. And I hit the mother load. Blade of Dreams, book 2 in the Kithmar series by Daniel Abraham that comes out this summer, became available and I snagged a copy. Age of Ash was one of my favorite reads of last year, and oh man, I loved it so much. I can still recall everything very vividly, even a year later. And honestly, there are some books where I put it down and I couldn't even tell you like what the main character's name was, even a day later. Heck, while I'm reading it, I can't always tell you the character's name, much less specific things about the plot. But this one, I remember every like nuance of story, and I just can't wait to see what happens next. This is my most anticipated release of the year, and I'm so excited I have a copy early. And if I finish that, the new Hollows book by Rachel Morgan, which also comes out in the summer, has a new book, Demons of Good and Evil, and I managed to snag a copy of that one as well. I don't think I've read a Kim Harrison book on publication date for a couple of years because they have been made available as ARCs, and I can't help myself. I snag them. So really looking forward to that one. Spoiler alert, I'm definitely doing that one for Project Urban Fantasy. And then Patrick mentioned a book on his channel that just immediately caught my attention. It's called The Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. And a day later, I noticed it was available as an e-ARC. And the only thing I need to know about this book is that it has a competition element, and I immediately want to read it. So I snagged a copy of that, prioritized behind those other 2 ARCs, but I definitely want to get to that one sooner than later. It just seems like a lot of fun. That's my lineup. So I've got my Faithful and the Fallen, Greenbone Saga, the Coward series, and one that I'm continuing from a Read Burn Horde thing that you haven't seen yet, so I didn't mention it. So there's my 4. And then I've got my rotation one, which is allowing me to focus on these random projects that I have going on. So as long as I get through these 2, I'm going to feel really happy about my progress. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know what books are high on your priority list this month. I also want to know if you're doing any weird challenges like me. I love hearing about them, and half the time I end up adapting someone else's random comment of a challenge they're doing into something that I'm doing in my own reading. Because you know me, I always love trying something new. Okay, thanks again, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.